The wrestling world has been shaken to its core in the past 24 hours. What you're about to hear may completely shift the way you see WWE's biggest stars, and question everything going on behind the curtain. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the undisputed Universal Champion, and the dominant force in WWE for years, has reportedly dropped everything and is currently racing across the country to a hospital in California. But this isn't about titles or TV time, this is real life. And what's unfolding behind the scenes is nothing short of devastating. Seth Rollins, the architect, the Monday Night Messiah, one-third of the Shield, has allegedly collapsed and is now fighting for his life. And the emerging details from insider sources are not only heartbreaking, they're infuriating. According to several individuals within WWE's inner circle, who are risking their careers by speaking out, Seth was found unconscious in his Los Angeles hotel room around 3:47 a.m. Hotel staff discovered him after friends grew concerned when he went radio silent for nearly 18 hours, completely out of character for the always connected and reliable Rollins, and here's where this becomes almost unbearable to process. WWE executives, those same people who constantly tout their commitment to superstar wellness, reportedly knew about Seth's struggles for months. Yet they allegedly did nothing. No intervention. No support. Instead, they piled on more pressure, more matches, more media appearances, more demands. While warning signs became increasingly obvious backstage, WWE allegedly looked the other way. Early reports suggest Seth's hotel room contained scattered prescription medications. But let's be clear, this isn't about assumptions. WWE superstars endure unbelievable physical punishment year after year. Chronic pain, non-stop travel, mental fatigue, it all adds up. When Roman Reigns got the call, it was around 4:15 a.m. at his home in Florida. Without hesitation, he chartered a private jet, out of his own pocket, and flew straight to California. This isn't about kayfabe. This isn't about championship belts. This is about brotherhood. Two men who bled, fought, and rose together in the Shield. Roman refused to let Seth fight this battle alone, and while Roman was in the air, WWE's PR machine allegedly sprang into action, but not to help Seth. No. According to sources, execs called an emergency meeting at 6 a.m., not to strategize Seth's care, but to plan media spin and control the narrative. Their priority? Protect stock prices. Not people. For weeks leading up to this moment, Rollins had shown signs of burnout. Backstage crew noticed he was withdrawn. He skipped meals. Isolated himself in the locker room. The typically vibrant and passionate Seth Rollins had grown quiet, and no one stepped in. The truth is, these performers are under immense pressure. Rollins has carried the WWE brand for years. Appearing on every show, taking every challenge, never complaining. But even the strongest minds can only take so much. The toll was growing. And now we're seeing the consequences. Roman's response? It speaks volumes. While WWE suits scrambled to protect their brand, Roman focused on one thing: being there for his friend. This is a man who knows what it's like to feel vulnerable. Roman has battled leukemia, he understands isolation. He understands fear. And now, he's channeling that into action for his Shield brother. Seth is currently receiving care at a California hospital, under heavy security. WWE has hired private security firms to keep media and fans away. But sources say the real reason isn't privacy, it's image control. The company is doing everything it can to keep this story buried. Industry insiders are now blowing the whistle on what they call a toxic backstage culture at WWE. A place where asking for help is seen as weakness. Where talent is told to push through pain instead of seeking real treatment. Where performers fear that showing vulnerability will cost them their spot. The prescription medication angle brings another ugly layer into the spotlight. For decades, pain management in professional wrestling has been a whispered crisis. Wrestlers have spoken out about the physical demands and the pills used to manage it. That someone like Seth, known for his professionalism and endurance, may have reached this point is a sobering sign that the system is still broken. Roman's cross-country flight was more than just an act of loyalty, it was a declaration. A message that humanity must come before headlines. Sources say that during the flight, Roman was on the phone non-stop, coordinating with medical professionals and ensuring Seth had access to the best care money could buy, and yet, as fans express global concern, WWE's official accounts remain silent. No statement. No support. Nothing. That silence speaks louder than any press release ever could. The wrestling community, however, is stepping up. Wrestlers past and present are flooding social media with love and support. But many of their messages carry an undertone of frustration. Vague references to burnout. Cryptic calls for better mental health care. Even subtle shots at WWE's brutal schedule. Medical experts warn that recovery in cases like this is about more than just medical treatment, it's about creating a sustainable support system. And if WWE continues to prioritize fast returns over true healing, we could be looking at more disasters down the road. This is where Roman's presence matters most. Not just as a friend, but as a powerful voice in the locker room. A top star demanding better for the people he came up with. Behind the scenes, this crisis is triggering serious conversations. Agents, talent, and insiders are pushing for new contract clauses focused on wellness. Some are even reconsidering their futures with the company if things don't change, and all of this is happening at a terrible time for WWE. The company is deep into negotiations for new TV and streaming deals. Executives are reportedly furious that this story leaked, worried it will derail their expansion plans. But what they should be furious about is how one of their most valuable stars slipped through the cracks. Roman Reigns, by choosing Seth over appearances, over business, over optics, may have just risked his standing with WWE brass. Even with all his clout, this move is bold. But necessary. At the hospital, calls have been flooding in, from fans, media, and colleagues alike. Everyone wants to know, is Seth okay? Is he going to pull through? Other Shield members are reportedly en route to California, rallying around Seth in a moment of true solidarity. That image, brothers gathering in crisis, sends a message stronger than any scripted reunion ever could. The investigation into what happened is still underway. Medical staff and potentially law enforcement are examining the scene. Depending on the outcome, this could force sweeping changes in how WWE handles wellness, pain management, and mental health. Industry analysts believe that if WWE doesn't adapt now, they'll face lawsuits, regulatory pressure, and possibly a mass talent exodus. Right now, Seth Rollins remains in serious but stable condition. Roman Reigns hasn't left his side. And the world waits, for answers, for change, and most of all, for hope. This isn't just another wrestling story. It's a wake-up call. One that could define WWE's future, and change the industry forever. What if I told you the biggest story in professional wrestling right now isn't happening inside the ring? It's not a title match. It's not a heel turn. It's not WrestleMania headlines, sold-out arenas, or 5-star matches that have the WWE Universe holding its breath. No. This story is different. This one is real. And this one hurts. In the early hours of a quiet California morning, long before fans started their day and before news outlets picked up the scent of something going terribly wrong, a man collapsed. A legend. A father. A husband. A brother. A warrior. A survivor. A man known to millions by a single name, Seth Rollins. The world knows him as the visionary, the architect, the Monday Night Messiah, the workhorse of WWE. The man who never stopped. Who never took his foot off the gas. Who flew from arena to arena with the weight of $1 billion empire on his back and a smile on his face. But when hotel staff in downtown Los Angeles unlocked the door to room 1427 at precisely 3:47 a.m., they didn't find a champion, they found a body unconscious. Barely breathing. Surrounded by chaos. Prescription bottles, energy drinks, shredded travel bags, a phone with 37 missed calls and 18 unread messages from a wife, a boss, and a brother-in-arms who hadn't heard from him in nearly an entire day. He wasn't scheduled for a match that night. No segment. No media obligations. Just one night of supposed rest. But inside that hotel room, the silence was deafening. The pulse of a man who never slowed down had almost stopped altogether. The 911 call was frantic. The paramedics were swift. The hotel cameras showed the emergency crew wheeling Seth Rollins, barefoot, pale, unresponsive, through the corridor. By 4:02 a.m., he was en route to a private wing of a California hospital, and by 4:15 a.m., Roman Reigns got the call. Imagine this for a moment. Dear Roman Reigns, it's still dark in Tampa, Florida. Your kids are asleep. Your wife's in bed beside you. You've just wrapped a grueling press tour, a few weeks removed from one of the most emotionally taxing years of your professional life. You're in the quiet lull of recovery, basking in the rare silence of a home untouched by wrestling's chaos for just one night, and then the phone rings. You check the caller ID. It's one of Seth's closest backstage allies. Maybe a trainer. Maybe an old road agent. Maybe someone you haven't spoken to in months, but the urgency in their name on your screen tells you, this can't be good. Roman answers. He doesn't say much, because what can you say when you hear the words, it's Seth? He's in bad shape. They found him unconscious. That call doesn't end with polite goodbyes or careful plans, it ends with a dial tone. Because by the time the voice on the other end finishes explaining, Roman's already up, already throwing on a hoodie, already booking a private jet to Los Angeles, out of his own pocket. He's not going as the tribal chief. He's not going as the locker room leader. He's going as Joe Anoa'i, the man behind the character, the man who once shared car rides with Seth Rollins through cornfields in Iowa, chasing down high school gyms and handshake deals before the lights, the belts, the millions, the man who stood side by side with Seth when the Shield first exploded onto our screens in 2012. The man who, when facing his own leukemia diagnosis in 2018, found one of the few people who stayed close. With Seth, now the roles are reversed, and while Roman Reigns is airborne, 30,000 feet above the country, unable to scream, to cry, to fix it with his fists, the world still doesn't know. Not yet, not until the sun begins to rise on the West Coast. Not until one tweet slips through the cracks. WWE Seth Rollins rushed to California hospital. Source close to situation says serious condition. In less than 15 minutes, the internet explodes. Reddit threads, fan forums, YouTube rumors, anonymous accounts claiming insider knowledge. But none of them can grasp the gravity of what's truly happening, because what's happening isn't just a medical emergency. It's not just an overdose. It's not just another fallen icon added to a list that's already far too long in this business. What's happening is a mirror held up to the entire WWE machine. The culture of silence. The glamorized grind. The way mental health is often dressed up as weakness and left to rot in the name of performance, and in the eye of that storm is Seth Rollins, our showman, our lunatic artist, our certified Iron Man, now reduced to silence under the fluorescent lights of a hospital bed. This introduction is not about tragedy for shock value. It's about truth. It's about why no one saw it coming when the signs were there. It's about how a system built on pushing through pain ended up pushing someone off the edge. And it's about how, in a moment of sheer terror, the man who once stood beside Seth Rollins through debut, destruction, and dominance, dropped everything to be by his side again. Roman Reigns didn't wait for a press release. He didn't consult public relations. He didn't call WWE corporate. He moved. Because that's what brothers do. Because this wasn't about brands or belts. This was about one man gasping for breath while another ran across the country to make sure he didn't take his last one alone. Now, the question we must ask isn't just, is Seth going to survive? It's deeper, more uncomfortable, more urgent. How many more won't, if nothing changes? In this special report, we are going to unpack everything: the 911 call timeline, Roman's private jet mission, WWE's internal chaos, the whispers from superstars demanding change, the medical reality of Seth's condition, and the emotional toll on a wrestling industry that's long ignored its deepest wounds. You'll hear from sources who were there. From voices in the locker room who have seen this coming for years. From fans whose love for these superstars is now entangled with concern, frustration, and grief. We will take you behind the walls of that hospital. Into the conversations no camera crew will ever capture. Into the boardrooms of WWE's corporate headquarters, where silence now screams louder than any pyro blast. This is not a scandal, this is not a storyline, this is the part where reality breaks kayfabe and reminds us all that these aren't just characters, they are people, flesh and blood. Fathers and sons. Fighters and friends, and sometimes they fall. The only question is, who's there to catch them? Welcome to the story of a brotherhood that may be the only thing strong enough to save a life and maybe, just maybe, change a company forever. This is Roman Reigns visits Seth Rollins in California hospital after he collapsed due to drug overdose, and everything you thought you knew is about to be challenged. The call came through the hotel switchboard just past 3:30 a.m. A soft, unsure voice on the line. A housekeeper, working the graveyard shift, mentioned that something didn't feel right. She hadn't seen movement from room 1427 in nearly a full day. The "Do Not Disturb" tag had been hanging on the door since the previous morning. No housekeeping. No food orders. No response to knocks. At first, the staff hesitated. After all, this was a VIP suite, booked under a corporate account, marked private client. Guests like that usually preferred discretion. But something about the stillness, the silence, felt wrong. Especially for a man like Seth Rollins. What most fans don't know is that Seth Rollins, even off camera, is clockwork. Early riser. Gym by 6 a.m. Texts his wife after workouts. Eats the same bland hotel breakfast, egg whites, oats, protein shake, every day. Even when traveling, he maintains a near military-grade schedule. Always replies to messages. Always checks in. Especially with Becky, especially when he's alone, but for nearly 18 hours, there was nothing. No texts. No social media activity. No calls, just absence, and absence, when it comes to someone like Seth Rollins, isn't silence. It's an alarm. By 3:42 a.m., the night manager had knocked. Once. Twice. Then harder. No answer. He used his keycard and opened the door, slowly, cautiously. What he saw would never leave him. The hotel room was in disarray. Not the kind of mess you'd expect from a rock star. No smashed bottles or flipped furniture. This was the quiet, suffocating chaos of someone spiraling inward. Prescription bottles lay open on the bathroom counter, labels blurred, some pills missing, some spilled. The bed was half-made, sheets twisted and damp with sweat. A lamp had been knocked over. The TV screen was frozen on a paused WWE Network replay of an old Shield reunion match, Roman, Seth, and Dean standing side by side. The echo of that image loomed heavy. And there, slumped halfway between the bed and the floor, was Seth, face pale. Lips dry. Breathing shallow. One arm dangling limply over the edge of the mattress, the other tucked beneath him at an odd angle. He looked like he'd been trying to stand, and didn't make it. For a moment, there was no sound. Not from Seth. Not from the stunned hotel employee, just a room heavy with desperation. A human being inches from death. Then chaos exploded into motion. The manager radioed for help. Emergency responders were on site within 7 minutes. At 3:55 a.m., the paramedics breached the room with a stretcher, pushing aside chairs and scattered luggage. The first responder later reportedly told colleagues, he was cold, but not gone. Oxygen was administered immediately. Pulse was faint, but there. Eyes, unresponsive. Vitals, unstable. They worked quickly. Professionally. But even seasoned medics couldn't ignore who they were treating. They knew the face. Even through the beard. Even through the sweat and panic. Seth Rollins. WWE superstar. A man who'd main event WrestleMania. A father. A husband. And now, a patient. They loaded him into the ambulance. One responder allegedly muttered, "This shouldn't be happening." Not to him. And yet, it was. By 4:05 a.m., Seth was being rushed through downtown Los Angeles, flanked by sirens, into the waiting ER of a high-security private hospital. The doctors on call had been briefed, but even they weren't prepared for the scope of what they were walking into, not just a celebrity overdose, but the unraveling of something much bigger. Meanwhile, inside WWE's inner circle, Panic was spreading like wildfire. The first call went to talent relations. Then to his agent. Then to select backstage personnel who had worked closely with Seth in the last few weeks. One anonymous road agent told reporters he'd been distant. Withdrawn. I just thought he was tired. Tired. It's a word we throw around casually. I'm tired. He looks tired. She sounds tired, but for people like Seth Rollins, who perform on a stage, whose job is to appear larger than life, tired is rarely just tired. It's a mask, and that mask had just slipped. By 4:10 a.m., Becky Lynch was called. The specifics of her reaction remain private, but sources close to the couple say her scream could be heard from the street. She immediately attempted to book a flight to California. With their child in the care of family, she wasn't the only one mobilizing. Trainers, old friends, even retired superstars began calling. Phones buzzed across multiple time zones. Voices cracked. Some cried. Others didn't speak at all, just listened in horror as the words played over and over. Seth's collapsed. Seth's in the hospital. Seth might not make it. There's a certain cruelty to fame when things fall apart. Within minutes of the hospital admitting Seth under a red flag emergency alert, someone leaked his status. It wasn't public yet, but it was coming. And WWE? They went into damage control, but not for Seth. Not yet. By 4:20 a.m., PR officers were reportedly already crafting potential public statements. Internal emails were sent out, warning staff against unauthorized contact with media. Meanwhile, the man lying unconscious in a California hospital bed was still being stabilized, and across the country, Roman Reigns stood barefoot in his kitchen, staring at the phone in his hand, listening to someone explain that the brother he'd known for over a decade might be dying. At 4:25 a.m., Roman made one decision: he was going to Seth. No matter what. That same minute, WWE's corporate offices began circulating a different kind of memo, one focused on optics, brand impact, and coordinated messaging. Two very different responses. One rooted in humanity. The other in damage control. But while executives plotted silence and lawyers crafted spin, something raw and real was unfolding just off Sunset Boulevard. Inside the emergency room, doctors were stabilizing Seth Rollins. Vitals improving. Oxygen levels rising. They ran toxicology screens. Ran blood work. Monitored brain activity. One nurse whispered, "He's fighting." And he was somewhere in that tangled fog of medication, fatigue, pain, and trauma. Seth Rollins was fighting, because that's what he's always done. In the ring. Outside of it. Through every betrayal, every broken bone, every night away from home. Seth has always fought, and now, for the first time, he was fighting something he couldn't pin, couldn't superkick, couldn't roll up for the win. He was fighting himself. This was the darkest match of his life, and he wasn't even conscious to know it had started. The house was silent. It was the kind of silence you can only appreciate after years of airports, arenas, locker rooms, and interviews. For Roman Reigns, it was rare peace. No late-night flights. No angry producers in his earpiece. No neon lights or pyro. Just the still hum of air conditioning and the gentle breath of his children asleep down the hall. He had just poured himself a glass of water. The refrigerator hummed as he leaned against the counter, scrolling through unread texts, some from talent relations, others from close friends. A few old Shield gifts fans had sent him earlier that night. He smiled faintly at one, a slow-motion clip of him spearing Randy Orton in 2014, Seth cheering in the background, and then the phone rang. It was 4:15 a.m. He didn't recognize the number at first. An LA area code. At this hour, that only meant one thing, something bad. Roman hesitated for a breath. He'd received calls like this before, too many, in fact. As a man who's battled cancer and buried brothers in arms, he knew the feel of incoming tragedy before the words ever landed. He answered. "Joe," a voice asked. "It's Rick. From medical." Roman's posture changed instantly. "Seth's in trouble. They found him in his hotel room." Silence. "Where is he now?" "He's at St. Elora Medical in downtown LA. They're saying it was an overdose, possibly accidental. He's not conscious." Roman's jaw clenched. His chest tightened, the water glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Becky. Their daughter. The travel. The backstage signs. The bruises Roman had seen. The way Seth hadn't replied to his last 3 texts. It all flooded back in a wave of realization. Not guilt, because Roman hadn't known. But something close to it. That feeling you get when you realize the man you thought had everything together, didn't. How bad is it? Roman asked. They're doing what they can. They say the next few hours are critical. That's all Roman needed to hear. He didn't ask permission. Didn't wait for more details. He hung up, ran upstairs, kissed his wife gently on the forehead. She stirred but didn't wake, and quietly packed a duffel bag with the essentials. Phone charger. Change of clothes. Hoodie. Toothbrush. Then he picked up his second phone, the one WWE executives had access to, and ignored the 10 notifications blinking on the screen. All corporate. All cold. He booked a private jet out of his own pocket. Called in 2 favors with friends in the aviation world. The plane would be ready within the hour. By 4:40 a.m., Roman Reigns was already on the way to the airport. No entourage. No security, just one man. One mission. He was going to Seth, not the performer. Not the coworker. But the man. The brother. Joe Anoa'i was flying to be with Colby Lopez. As he climbed into the back of the waiting SUV, his phone rang again. This time it was someone from WWE corporate. He didn't answer, because he already knew what that call would be. A carefully rehearsed script. Damage control. Legalese. Talking points. The same nonsense they always recited when the business bled into reality. Instead, Roman called Becky. She answered in a whisper, her voice already broken. I just heard, she said, tears audible through the line. They said it was close. They said, I'm already in the car, Roman replied. I'm coming. I'm not letting him go through this alone. The silence on the other end was more emotional than any words. He wouldn't want anyone else, Becky finally said. Roman looked out the window at the dim, waking horizon. He wouldn't do that to me. I'm not doing that to him. As the SUV sped down the highway, Roman reflected on a different moment, years ago, when he had received the diagnosis of leukemia's return. He remembered who had visited him at the hospital. Who had held his hand. Who had stood over him when he didn't want to be seen weak. Seth had been there even when cameras weren't. Even when WWE had begun to plan who would replace Roman in his absence, Seth stayed, and now, Roman would return the favor. Only this time, it wasn't about a storyline comeback or reclaiming a title. This was about the man behind the mask, and that's what hurt the most, because Roman knew Seth better than most. He knew how much pain Seth absorbed daily. Not just the physical toll of wrestling, though that was bad enough. But the mental weight. The perfectionism. The self-doubt behind the confident smirk. The nights where the cheers didn't feel like enough. The constant pressure to be everything to everyone. To the fans. To the company. To his family. Roman once told Seth, you carry too much. And Seth had laughed, someone's gotta carry the damn thing, he'd said. Now, Roman understood what that had really meant and what it had cost. By the time he arrived on the tarmac, the jet engines were already whirring. Roman climbed aboard, dropped into a leather seat, and closed his eyes. Not to sleep. He wouldn't sleep on this flight. But to prepare. He wasn't just flying to a hospital. He was flying into a storm. Back in Connecticut, WWE executives were scrambling. Word of Seth's condition was spreading internally. No press releases yet, but emails had begun to circulate among senior staff. Roman's name appeared in those threads. Some suggested he stay out of it for now. That his involvement might cause PR complications. One even allegedly said, if he shows up at that hospital, it becomes a story. Roman didn't care. To him, it was a story, not one for ratings or profit, but one of love. Of brotherhood. Of failure. Of redemption. As the plane ascended above the clouds, Roman looked out the window and thought of their journey from that first night in NXT. To the Shield's debut at Survivor Series. To the breakups, the betrayals, the reunions. To the nights they bled together. To the times they sat in cheap motels with ice packs on their backs, wondering how long their bodies could hold out. He remembered the way Seth always pretended to be invincible, the way he'd joke through injury,